Birches by Robert Frost. To start off, the speaker in the poem introduces us to his imagination of a boy swinging on birch trees and bending them permanently. In contrast to this, he continues by stating that it is not children who play on trees that bend the trees permanently, but rather ice storms, that when the snow and the ice become too much of a burden for the tree, it subdues them to the ground, and they can never fully right themselves again. Frost brings into play an imagery of sun warming the ice and letting it fall off these trees. And as the ice falls off the trees, it looks like the dome of heaven had shattered onto the floor. So with this, he brings together the imagination of the speaker as well as the harsh realities of winter. And although the ice had made the trees suffer with their load, they had also been warmed up by the sun, and it gives hope into that first glimpse of imagination we had at the beginning. Also, he brings in a religious element by talking about the dome of heaven and really letting that be a visual for the reader. Frost also personifies truth as a being that is very matter-of-fact and severe in nature, and something that had deterred him from his original intent of recording this imagination of the speaker and the happiness that he had in this imagination. The speaker talks about this boy, and the boy in itself brings to light two different contrasts, and that is one of civilization and cities and towns that most of us live in, and the contrast with that is the nature and peacefulness that's far away from all of the society's ideals and things like that. With this contrast, he wants to exemplify the boy as someone that is very innocent and pure, and he wants him to be able to play by himself and let his own imagination as a little boy carry him through whatever he decides to do for fun. The reason why the boy's innocence is so important in this poem is that it brings a purity to the imagination and really highlights the contrast between joy and reality, or darkness and light. The poem goes on and introduces a father into the scenario, and this father allows the boys to subdue all his trees and bend them until not one is not limp with his play. And the reason this is important is the father is not only letting him enjoy his childhood to the fullest, but he's allowing him to grow and learn as he continues in his childhood. The speaker states that he had learned all there was to learn about climbing trees and not launching off too soon, that he took a very careful consideration when he climbed the trunk of the trees, much like we would do as goals in our own lives, and trying to achieve those goals, that we would do so carefully and with a focus. But he states when he got to the top that he would release a lot of that focus and that he would allow himself to be free and happy, and he would fling feet first into the sky and enjoy his whole ride down back to the ground. So as this poem evolves, you start to get a sense that the speaker is actually an old man, which again brings the element of the boy and the father and now the old man. And he says that he used to be a swinger of birches himself, and he wants to go back to his childhood and do so once more. And he begins to contemplate how life begins to get hard and is much like a pathless wood that you wander through. And he states that as life gets harder, you begin to feel its harshness, and you have twigs breaking across your eye and scratching them, and your face is burning. And the old man then switches again into another contrast. And he says he'd like to get away from that for a little while. And he alludes to climbing these trees and being youthful again as an escape from the harsh realities of life. And he also states that he does not want to just go up these trees and climb the height of them without being able to enjoy the ride back down. He wants both equally. And he reasons that the reason he wants to come back down to Earth is that it's the right place for love. And he doesn't know where it's likely to go better. And where this kind of leads is he understands that although it is a beautiful escape to climb these trees and get away from realities of life, he understands that there are beautiful things that happen in life and on Earth. So the old man, the speaker in this poem, really comes to term with his entire life, and he states that he'd like to go by climbing a birch tree and climb black branches up a snow-white trunk toward heaven. Now here he really alludes to that religious element again and brings in some imagery of colors and contrasting colors at that, stating that he uses black branches to climb snow-white trunks, and these snow-white trunks are what leads him to heaven. But again, he wants to be able to reach the top and be set back down on Earth again, because it'd be both good going and coming back. And he understands that both reaching heaven or reaching those goals and coming back to the realities of Earth are both necessary to enjoy a full life. The poem ends with the line, "One could do worse than be a swinger of birches." And in essence, this is stating that the culmination of the contrast throughout this poem, which was used in imagery, in contrast of colors, in words and dictation, as well as the whole tone that fluctuates throughout the poem, going from light and dark, from sadness to happiness, really emphasizes the point that life is most enjoyable when you have both light and dark, and you go through happy times as well as sad times to understand that making these memories as you go throughout your life is what's important. And that is how you enjoy the fullness of a life.